Hey guys, Exeter here, and welcome back to the U.S. Relations series. On my last video, I mistakenly said that Andorra would be the country that we're going over next. However, due to my own stupidity, I failed to realize that in alphabetical order that Algeria comes after Albania. So now that my stupidity is out of the way, let's get into the video. Today, we'll be going over the relationship between the United States of America and the North African country of Algeria. Historically, the two nations have held pretty positive interactions with one another. When the US was still under colonial rule, their shipping through the Mediterranean was paid for and covered by that of the British. Many European powers at the time paid tributes to the privateering Algerians in order to prevent attacks on Mediterranean shipping.
Yo, where do you think you're going? Alright, you can go through.
However, once the US gained independence, they were no longer covered by the British payments. In 1794, the US made a deal with Algeria that paid them $10 million in return for peaceful access through the Mediterranean. Just a year later, the two signed a peace treaty, and Algeria was also one of the first countries to officially recognize the United States of America. This peace treaty between the two only lasted about 20 years before they went to war with one another. Pretty much all of Europe as well has gotten fed up with the massive amounts of piracy and privateering by Algeria, and they all decided to go to war against the North African nation. It wasn't long until the US got involved in the war as well, then starting the Second Barbary War. The US sent a fleet of warships to an Algerian harbor, which threatened the city with their weapons, demanded that Algeria stops interfering with US trade, pay for war damages, release US prisoners, and stop the practice of enslaving Christians. Algeria ultimately agreed to these demands, and relations between the two have stayed relatively positive since then. Pretty soon after this, Algeria even sent officials of its own to Syria in order to free thousands of enslaved Christians. This action was greatly honored by U.S. President Abraham Lincoln for his humanitarian achievement. In 1830, relations between the two deteriorated. This wasn't due to any hostile actions or anything of that nature, but rather due to Algeria being colonized and occupied by the French. Following this, relations between the U.S. and Algeria have stayed relatively dry since the US made all of its deals and meetings directly through France when regarding Algeria. The US did try to still work with Algeria without alienating their French colonizers. When more independence movements began to sprout, US President John F. Kennedy announced his support for Algerian independence in 1962. But just 5 years later, Algeria did sever ties with the United States due to US support of Israel during the Arab-Israeli War against Algeria's Arab allies. The two countries did eventually re-establish ties with one another in 1974 under U.S. President Richard Nixon. The relationship remained peaceful, with Algeria even being the negotiations mediator between Iran and the United States during the Iranian hostage crisis of 1981. Algeria was also one of the first nations to announce its support for the United States in its war on terror following the September 11th attacks in 2001. The two continued to work closely with one another regarding terrorism in the region, with Algeria even allowing the US to establish a military airfield in southern Algeria to combat terrorist groups. Due to Algeria's strong support for America's war on terror, this has led to the US to remain more neutral on Algeria's political issues. This includes things such as corruption and civil rights violations within the African country.
Let me help you with that.
No, it's okay, I got it.
What's this?
I can explain.
You know what? Alright, that's under the rug now. See you later, man. Yeah, the US does kind of let things slide with Algeria on occasion, but this is mainly due to their military cooperation with one another. But I'd also be lying if I was saying that Algeria isn't working on these internal issues. In Algeria, it is illegal to discriminate on the basis of age, race, and sex, but freedoms such as freedom of press and LGBT rights are harshly discriminated against. However, on a good note, we are starting to see more acceptance movements within Algeria's younger population. For all we know, we may see Algeria follow in Iraq's footsteps and open up to more acceptance processes in the near future. Now let's move away from bullying Algeria and move back to the two's relationship with one another. Currently, relations between the US and Algeria are still pretty strong, with the two having a free trade agreement, Algeria taking part in occasional NATO military exercises, the two having embassies within each other's capitals. To sum it all up, these two have a pretty strong relationship with one another, and that likely isn't to change anytime soon. Thank you for watching the U.S. Relations series. Please make sure to like and subscribe if you liked the video, and stay tuned next week for U.S. Andorra Relations. See you guys soon.